I would like to ask if Abraham has any translators on other planets.
On other planets?
Mm-hmm. Or is it Earth specific?
We're wanting to answer the whole of your question, but we want to contemplate the perspective from which it is asked. You are an extension of non-physical, and what you've got going on here is specific to this time and place. And when you think about momentum and satisfaction, then you sort of get why that is. The reason that people reach for other frontiers or other planets, so to speak, is because their creativity is sort of dried up and they don't think that there's more to get from where they are. It's sort of like saying, there's no more for me here, and that's never the case. Expansion is always about where you currently are. And so the reason that we were hedging a little bit on this answer is because your inner being is capable of intertwining with all that is. And there is so much that is vibrationally active that is not specific to this time and place. That as it relates to you all, you're all of it. What you're asking for and your readiness to receive what we know about that, that is as satisfying as it gets.
Thank you.
Did you hear the important answer in that question?
Yep.
Don't look other places because you're bored here.
There's no separation.
Because the reason you're bored here is because you're not tuned in to who you really are. Because if you're tuned into who you really are, you would understand the perfection and the bigness of what's right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I understand and I don't feel bored. I feel excited and I feel like I want to learn more about this translation process.
Yeah.
So,
well, the translation process, it's a wonderful thing. First, you have to accept that you are vibrational. And then you have to accept that you're receiving and translating vibrations at many levels of your being. And that thought is one of them, but that there are lots of other ways that you're translating vibrations. And so once you accept that you are a transmitting and a receiving mechanism, and you are aware from what vibrational stance you're doing it. In other words, this is the reason that we say step one is evaluating contrast. Well, that's thinking. Step two is sources answering. So that's not you thinking. Step three is you being in the receptive mode of what source thinks about what you have asked. And so being able to separate step one from step three is a really important component of the satisfaction of your life experience. Nice to know, isn't it? Here's a good fact, evaluation or observation of what is. Most humans are spending about 90% of your waking, focused life in that thinking process that you intended to spend about 5 to 10%. Most people are spending about 10% or less in the receptive mode. It sneaks up on you and you let it in every now and again accidentally. Most of you are spending 10% there instead of the 90% that you intended. And the reason that we're saying that, think about the evolution of your species. Think about the evolution of your time and place. Think about how much is in place before you got here. Before you got here this time. Before you got here in this personality. So much has been desired and achieved so that it is not just a vortexual reality, it is a reality that you were born into. And so you might say, well, thank goodness we're not spending all of our time scrounging for food this time. Isn't it nice that we've evolved to the state that we have a higher level of comfort and so on? And we agree, we adore the evolution of your time and space. The disadvantage of it is that you become complacent in it. The advantage of it is that you could feel more satisfaction if you would allow yourself to. So we know for sure that understanding the way it all works is necessary for you to feel satisfaction. Because you could be born to very productive parents who figured out how to make their life work. And they could yield to you plenty of the things that in human terms are measurable resources and benefits. And others who are looking at you would say, oh, you are the beneficiary of so much. You are such a lucky person. And we would say, not so much, because the satisfaction factor is based upon what your life has caused you to ask for and the degree to which you have been able to close that gap. It hasn't got anything to do with what somebody else created and gave to you. Now, some might say, but them giving it to you, isn't that your point of attraction? And we say, of course it is. Everything that you're living is your point of attraction. And you had a lot of your attraction intentions going before you even got into this physical body. But let's just talk about it as here you are, right here and now, in this moment in time, with a whole world to observe. And out of this observation, you are coming to personal selfish, because you can't help it. You only have the perspective of self, conclusions about what would be better for humanity, for life in general, for you specifically, all day, every day. Those intentions are occurring to you, and you're launching these rockets of desire, whether you know that you are or not. And now that you know that you are, and you know it more clearly than you've ever known it because you've been listening to us, you're in vibrational sequence with who you really are. You're closer to knowing this than you've ever been before. So now that you know that your vortex is full of all kinds of wonderful things, and now you know that your emotions will guide you to alignment, and that it is right that you feel good, and that it is good that you feel good, and that it's important that you feel good, and that feeling good is the name of this game, period. Feeling good is the name of the game, because the rest of it you did without even needing to know about it. You were born into contrast. You couldn't help but notice it. You were born into new desires being launched from you. You couldn't stop it if you tried. You were born into the success of a big vortex being carved out by you. You could not help that. You were born into an equation, a vibrational law-based equation where source is answering all of the things that you are asking for, and standing in the midst of your vortex as a point of attraction to the gathering of the cooperative components to everything that you have been asking for. That is so big, and now you know that. And now you know the only piece that you have control over, and the only piece that really matters, because it's the only piece that you have control over, and the only piece that really matters because it's the only piece that you have control over. Because you didn't have control over the contrast, did you? You didn't have control over your own deductions from it. Could you stop your wanting even if you tried? You can't. You can't squelch that wanting. It's just going to happen. Could you stop the vortex from forming? You couldn't. Not here in your human form. You couldn't. It's bigger than you are. It's going to happen. Can you keep your inner being from standing there and being the point of attraction and gathering all the cooperative components? Can you stop all of this well-being that's gathered on your behalf? You can't stop that. The only thing you can do is throw the shoe out the window. The only thing that you can do is disallow yourself satisfaction in the moment, you see. And when you get that, when you understand that this is your peace, that satisfaction is the peace for you, and you become an expert at being satisfied, then you become the deliberate creator of all deliberate creators, because every wish, every whim, every idea, every fantasy, every hope, every thought you ever thought about anything being better for you or anyone else is realized by you, because you're right there queued up in the receptive mode. And when the first thoughts start flowing and you recognize what's happening and you know you're in the zone and you acknowledge why it's happening and you commit to doing more of whatever it was that put you there, and then you got into this satisfying lifetime run of things just unfolding for you. And many others standing back in amazement because they've forgotten the equation. They don't know how important it is to be satisfied. They think that these circumstances mean that they should be dissatisfied, and they believe that things have to change and that conditions have to change and that others have to be provoked or lured or demanded into some different behavior so that they can feel better. And they remain lost while you find yourself. And the more found you are, the more of them look at you and say, hey, how'd you find yourself? And you say, quit worrying about what all of you are doing. Started looking at the bigger picture. Started stepping back into the universal equation. started being more law-based, started paying attention to the things that I know for sure. Oh, what things are those? Well, you really want to know? Yeah, I really want to know. Well, I figured out a little bit by trial and error that I can't stop wanting things, and that it's good that it's that way. And then I found out that everything I want is in a form of becoming. And I have to get good at seeing it even before everybody else can. In religious terms, they call it faith. I've just felt better to believe it was going to happen than to think it wasn't going to happen. So I just started gently guiding my thoughts into hopeful at first, and then more believing after a while, and then knowing. And when you know, you trust the laws of the universe. And when you trust the laws of the universe, or even hope the laws of the universe, when you hope them, they make you believe. And when you believe them, they help you know. And when you know them, then you trust them. And once you've got that, then you feel invincible. Then you know that there is nothing that you cannot be or do or have. And so then I just started having a good time watching life unfold, and I got to guide it with my clear thoughts. Well, do you feel good all the time? Oh no, I have negative emotion from time to time. I call that step 5, because the negative emotion doesn't last. I just dip and I realize it, but then I feel glad that I've realized it. And I'm happy to know that I'm never going to stop asking. I've learned to be satisfied even though a whole lot of what I want is still in the process of becoming. That's the trick. That's the key. A whole lot that I want is still in the process of becoming, but I'm still satisfied. And you got to be that way, because in every moment of every day, you're putting more in the vortex that's in the beginning stages. If you need it all to manifest before you're happy, you're not ever going to be happy. And that's something to celebrate, that it's not all ever going to be done, because then we'd all really be dead. This is what puts the eternalness in eternity. It's this willingness, this new willingness that you felt when you decided to come into this body, and you said, I'm willing to explore contrast, and I'm willing to choose new, and I'm willing to line up with new, and I'm willing to tune into new, and I'm willing to be in the receptive mode so that those vibrations can turn to things in this leading edge reality. Leading edge, supposed to manifest. It's where we're all focused. You're a big part of it. Really good, yeah?
Yes. Thank you.
Something more?
I would just like to say, you mentioned earlier that first called it the science of deliberate creation, and then you called it the art of
science,
alignment.
because it's ongoing, it's ever-changing, it's becoming more and more and more new discoveries. Science, science, science. And deliberate, because you're doing it on purpose. You're not doing it by default. You care about it. So deliberate, the science of deliberate, and then creation is the natural. But you did to it what you do to everything. You make it much more work than it's supposed to be. You tried to make yourself worthy because you got the biggest mark on the chart, because you were the most scientific deliberateness.
I would like to offer another string of words that
Yeah.
people could get hung up about later.
Yes.
And it is the meditative art of musical magnetic conversation. That's what I call this exchange of...
Say it again, one word at a time.
The meditative
Meaning aligned.
art
Meaning I've practiced and I'm good at it.
of musical...
Meaning that it feels really good to me. It feels really good, and there's manifestation in the early stages of it.
magnetic
Magnetic, meaning law of attraction is all over it.
conversation.
Meaning, oh, it's so good to have this conversation.